Nah, no, we're just going to go live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Inlay Terms. I'm your host, Payman Ascari, and today in house with us, on the episode with us is Mike Holmes. How's it going, Mike?
I am good, sir. Thank you to you, and thank you to those who will be viewing.
Yeah, we'll see how many viewers I get. I always joke about how I have such a low impact, low number of viewers.
It's all right. Everybody's got to start somewhere. Podcasters unite. There's lots of topics, and it's like, I mean, those 60 viewers or what have you that you say that you have. Well, I know that they're not following an injection of truth.ca that I know of, right? So and that's what this is about. So if that's like another 5 or 10 more people that decide that they want to take an interest in the story and the event and participate, then that's great. That's still forward progress in my mind.
Well, hopefully we can throw a couple your way. We got Kirk here, Kirk Reese here with us. Hey, Kirk, how's it going? He can't hear me. Um, Mike, yeah, I just wanted to have a casual conversation with you. We were talking
Mm-hmm.
backstage about censorship in Canada. I guess you've been feeling the impacts of that.
Maybe not so much directly myself, but like through or like my family's channel just getting off the ground. So we're not really feeling the punch for that. But as you can see in the header for an injection of truth.ca, that first event when that got put on and the organizing committee of which I'm a part of was getting it out there. It got like all the type of negative press that is associated with trying to have a conversation about a topic that is controversial according to mainstream narratives. So there's obviously that censorship and difficulty of reach, like people that had willingly put us on for promotional videos and chats like the one we're having right now on YouTube. They found their channel being taken down or whatever, like a strike, or they got put into the penalty box. So I mean, obviously when you're bringing up a topic and you're a smaller YouTuber or whatever content creator, you're going to feel a pinch no matter what. I mean, same thing on Facebook. You go to put something to do with the injection of truth, you'll get your usual, naysayers. They'll all come up and they'll start, sort of uh, smashing and dashing your program and trying to do the usual name calling and whatnot. But I mean, really, at the end of the day, the more people that have these types of scenarios where we put up the channel, you have the conversation, even if it's 10 people. Like there's channels that I've been following since the beginning of the everything to do with the pandemic and people wanting to talk. Just let's just talk about what happened. Let's talk about what's going on and the policies that were implemented, the lockstep of our governments. And although yes, there was all sorts of suppression. I mean, you could tell just by even, like a big eye opener for a lot of people was the trucker convoy too, right? Nobody got like any really good media coverage for that to understand what was going on, except for the streamers and the YouTubers and the content creators that were there on ground level. So I think now, when you really think about it, the adaptation of individuals such as yourself or myself or people that are planning events and town halls and trying to have conversations to get to the bottom, get to the truth of the matter of things, we're just finding a way around all the roadblocks, right? So I mean, at the end of the day, I think that the truth will out, as the British like to say. And I'm not no one for quoting and being a big supporter of the British, but yeah. So that would be my answer to that question.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the our government, like we pay taxes for our government to turn around and tell us what we can and can't say. Ultimately,
I mean, censorship has been. I don't know if you're familiar with the works of Dr. Ian McGilchrist. My family's a pretty big proponent of his work. And when it comes to left hemisphere proclivity of thinking and right hemisphere proclivity of thinking, it's not uncommon. We do this. We self censorship. Even at best of times with those little white lies. Does this dress make me look fat? It. We do this, but for it to get scaled up the way it has, this isn't uncommon in human history. I mean, for anybody that's familiar, if they do recall maybe your conversation with Matthew Garrett when he was on your show like way back, there's historical precedent for this all the time. I think that here in the West, we have a naivety to our own story. Our own education system is not very honest about our history, even like what is Canada and how we've gotten to the place that we are. So in all actuality, censorship is quite common, and it happens a lot throughout history. We feel like we're spoiled, but it's one of those like, well, notice who you can't criticize, and then all of a sudden the censorship comes out. It's just a lot of us are operating in the regular realms of being like regular plebs, doing the job, taking care of the family, doing what you think is right. Nothing really too controversial to say much of anything. You know, a lot of people would look at following politics and your governments and kind of, they don't have an interest in it. They're not politically active on average for Canadian citizenry. So getting nailed with censorship and having a government overreach into what you have to say and the message that you would like to talk about, that's once again not uncommon. I mean, an example of this, a great one, and is like I recently found out with, not recently, a while back, I found out when the thalidomide controversy was going on and people were starting to want to inquire about the downstream consequences of what was happening to people that were taking it, and then birth defects and the problems that were happening. There was literally a like 7 to 10 year segment where you couldn't even use that word in the Westminster government of Britain. Like it was forbidden. So once again, right? It's like censorship only shows up when that disposition, that left hemisphere proclivity of thinking, the self confirmation, your confirmation biases kick in, and politicians are just people, right? And then that group of people is under the umbrella of like a privy council, say for example in Canada, like, which in my opinion we could do without unelected bureaucrats that have all sorts of say in secretive agendas, and all of a sudden they're the ones that top down sit back and go, this is going to be the narrative control that's going on. Because I mean, you'll have to admit the British Empire is the masters of narrative control. I mean, Operation Mockingbird, these are all things that play into the toolkit of governments to do censorship, to nudge people's minds into certain directions. So I mean, I guess I shouldn't really sit back and say I'm surprised. It just, when all of a sudden it's up in your face and in your grill, and all of a sudden you find yourself being victimized by the government in that way, then all of a sudden it perks you up, and then you look around and you run into other people that are like, you know what, that happened to me too. Nice thing is we're finding each other now, so we'll overcome it.
I asked this question to a lot of people, and you tell me what you think. Do you think this is a case of we're kind of just waking up, or we're seeing it more because of social media? Like before they had full control of mainstream media, whereas now we're talking about it? Or has this literally been like kicked into high gear?
Probably a correlation of both. When you had just your 3 channels back in the day, where you was like, what, ABC or BBC, ABC, NBC, like whatever, like pick your country, CBC for Canada, but a little easier to do. But I mean, it was no different when when radios were first coming into people's homes, they were still running narrative control then, and you only had so many channels. And then that's when pirate radios and people started, like the earliest podcasters were pirate radio operators. They were the ones that would then jump onto a frequency and they would talk about the things that were beyond the narrative. And then that's when more regulators came in, because they were like, we got to stop these voices, because just people would learn and figure out the way to get onto AM radio or FM radio frequencies, right? So I think that no matter whatever the medium, technologically speaking, that they use to try to herd the masses into the Overton windows, there's always those groups of individuals that find themselves going, we're going to find our way through or around that. So I think that the awareness comes with the platform that reaches out the most, and the internet is by far, right, at this stage, the largest, most difficult to control means of allowing us to interface with one another, right? You're in BC, I'm in Alberta, and here we are, like, and then we got connected by an individual in Montreal, and we find ourselves with like all sorts of alignments and in certain aspects, other areas where we may not agree, but we get to communicate and talk about it. People get to watch this in real time, or they can tune in and listen to it later, and mirror neurons kick in. Then all of a sudden that allows, like, because free speech truly is an important part of being able to even just navigate our own psychology with one another. You're always in a constant state of negotiation. So to answer the question as a whole, I think that they both kind of rise at the same time. People's awareness, I think that right now, because of the downstream consequences of the interventions that were foisted upon Canadians and in the larger scale, the lockstep of the Western of the West, what we've been facing in the last 4 to 5 years, March 16th, 2020 is when kind of like all heck broke loose for, the whole COVID debacle. I think because of the damage that's, although the mainstream won't acknowledge it, but your regular citizens are feeling the pinch, whether it's going to be their health was never the same after the interventions, whether they like those that lost their jobs because of lockdown policies, whether it's psychological harms that happen to people and children wearing masks in schools, and all the different policies that got implemented that have like the Gary Davidson report that just recently came out for Alberta's pandemic response. It was a very edifying report for those that were paying attention and being critics as things were moving along. And it's like the ripple effect of the damage and inconveniences and that have happened to humanity from that shook the ant nest, I guess, if you will, like to such a degree that that's why I believe there's something tipped. Like like when you say awakening, that's probably it. Like we got slammed. And even though there was a lot of people that were coerced and manipulated and fear driven, and I mean, we even have our own Canadian military talking about psyops, and the same thing happened in the UK. There was these units that were literally set out to, avoid any type of vaccine hesitancy. So we've got to like blanket with the psyop attacks and trying to get people to, don't be hesitant to the jab, go and do it for your grandma. And I think that's what's a big contributor to people kind of starting to get their heads on a swivel. That's why the Overton window's moving. I mean, that's why you got like people that are willing to talk now where they weren't, with like guys like RFK Jr. getting sworn in down in the US for the HHS position. It's like there's more awareness because there's more damage. I think before, when we were dealing with our censorships, it wasn't like the government has historically been unfortunately, statistically speaking, throughout the world, governments have murdered more of their citizens than any other organization in the history of mankind. But this one took the cake. I mean, if we look at the work
Mike,
of Denis Rand, sorry.
you said there's more awareness because there's more damage. That's where my question was going when I said, like, is it getting kicked into high gear? So it is getting worse. Like, I can't think of a single moment in my 35 years in Canada where something like this was unleashed upon us by the government. Again, is it actually getting worse? Is the damage worse, or are we just seeing it more?
Well, that's why we ask for individuals to come to the town hall for an injection of truth.ca. We were wanting to ask the questions because we want to take data that we can hopefully get from our government through the report that Dr. Gary Davidson had gotten, because Danielle asked for an inquiry and he went and did his job. And so he'll speak on that. That's also why we have Denis Rancourt coming, because his work on all-cause mortality and what the effects of the policies that governments across Canada federally, but also provincially, were not helpful. It did not help. It did not save lives. And now downstream, we have all sorts of reasons and evidence is starting to come forward that no, this is not just us seeing things more than we ever did before. There is actually not just like a blood trail of human life lost through the all-cause mortality data, because like dead is dead. Now the reasons can be argued, sure, but there is direct correlations. I mean, anyone that does a little bit of research, and I do mean a little bit, look at the Bradford Hill criteria, right? Those are 10 sort of methodologies that actually do allow for the process of correlation and causation being intermingled. And we constantly get that argument that, oh, well, correlation doesn't necessarily mean causation. It's like, well, actually, that's why the Bradford Hill criteria came up. Dr. Jessica Rose, who spoke at our first injection of truth, easily laid that out. I mean, these are scientific methods and methodologies that have been around for a long, long time. And it's funny that we were able to trust it for all the years leading up to what just recently happened, for the interventions that were foisted upon us and the tyranny that was jammed down our throats. And yet now all of a sudden, no, those are no good. We can't use that as a way of being able to garner information so that we understand where we are on the map. Yeah, no, this is not a oh, more awareness because of the internet. This is bodies in the ground, and we should start asking the questions as to how did all those bodies get there. We are still currently experiencing excess death in Canada on average of 10 to 20%. Higher than normal. And we still counted bodies all of our history for as long as we've been running the medical records, and we have a chief medical officer of health in Canada. So the evidence is over time. So the answer to the question is actually yes, it is worse. Yes, we do have more corpses. We have the unanswered questions as to how they all came about. There is a correlation between these policies and medical interventions. So we should be asking these questions of our governments. We should be getting both sides of our discussion to come to a table for the public to view it. So we can use our discernment and we can consider what it is that's being offered. I mean, how do you make an expert? 10,000 hours of reading and studying, right? And then all of a sudden, 4 years later, you're considered an expert because you got some peers at a university that say, there you go, you're now whatever, the engineer, the doctor, like pick your accolade. And then you got to go and put in 10,000 hours into that line of work, So that means that what are you doing technically? Reading, writing, learning, communicating with peers. And then all of a sudden, you're supposed to be able to be trusted. Well, human beings can do that. It's human beings that became doctors. It's human beings that became engineers. So you're going to tell me that your regular citizens can't figure out how to read scientific papers. They can't actually sit back and use their discernments and listen to discussions and then try to go follow up with information, talk to their own doctors, talk to their friends and families. Maybe, everybody kind of at some point in time either knows a doctor or knows a friend of a doctor or knows an engineer or, like it's called life. It's called community. So I think we can figure it out. So we need to get the people in the room so that we can have the conversation, and that's we can figure things out. And then we can put pressure on individuals. Like, if I'm not mistaken, you are very politically active. You're a member of the PPC party. So I'm assuming you're going to be running. And so we need to be able to take all your information, get onto your boards and your councils, and have conversations with you to say, we're trying to keep ourselves as informed citizens. So that way we can help keep you accountable so that you are also an informed citizen, but you are taking on the mantle of saying that you can represent a platform and that you can represent individuals such as myself on a federal level. Well, okay, fair enough. I need to know, is your mind there? What do you know? What are you willing to learn? Do you have the humility to be able to learn? And can you communicate that effectively to those that would try to be your opposition within Parliament? Because you're going to get opposition. We know this because in Alberta, we got Eric Bouchard and the Lougheed Constituency Association that is being the primary sponsor of the Injection of Truth event. And when we did the first one, he was the lone MLA that was putting on this town hall to have the conversation, a difficult conversation. And then we had this time 10 CAs that are now on board. So that's those boards, and doesn't necessarily reflect the view of the MLA, but it's encouraging the MLAs of those boards. They should consider being involved because their board voted for this. So that means a motion had to get put forward. It had to get seconded. Then the vote had to be registered. Then that president of that CA board had to then contact Eric Bouchard and the Lougheed board so that they saw that this was the will of the board, and then they get put on to the site.
Sorry,
as a sponsor.
what is a CA board?
Constituency Association. So we have 87 of them in Alberta. So there are areas that are represented because I'm talking on the provincial politics, not the federal.
I see. Okay.
Sorry, my
bad. I think in BC, I know federally they're electoral district associations. I think provincially they're ridings, I believe.
Yeah, that's another way of saying it. So,
Sorry, I cut you off
anyway,
there.
no,
So
that's all good. I
maybe
mean, that's an important question. I mean, your audience, maybe not that many of them are in Alberta. I don't know.
yeah, sorry about that. I ruined your concentration. Can you maybe tell us about an injection of truth? Like, what exactly is your mandate?
So the first one was asking the question, why is the death rate of children up 380% in the province of Alberta? And we actually got kind of put in our place on that. We should have added a zero. It was actually 3,800%. But that being said, the mission was we wanted to get the vaccine schedule, the mRNA shots taken off the childhood schedule. So we had an invite got sent out to both sides of the debate, but only one side decided to show up. Unfortunately, because many of the speakers that did show up, and again, many of the speakers for the second one that are going to show up, they were willing to give up their time slots for people that were more mainstream narrative in their thinking to have a slot. Like, well, come and bring your information. Let's say your piece, but they're not. They haven't. We kind of expected that, but it's unfortunate because the thing is that this is a public discussion. It's a town hall, right? So this isn't like people talking at citizens. This is people coming in to talk with and to citizens. So we can figure out how to go into action on these topics with our MLAs. And so the second one, which is coming up on March 3rd, so people can see there's the injectiontruth.ca. So please go and check it out. This one is on healing humanity, and a part of that process is we're going to be looking at all cause mortality. We're going to be looking at some of the legal challenges that are going on. We have we have a Sean Buckley, who is a lawyer. We also have Jeff Rath, who's a lawyer, that are going to be speaking. We have David E. Martin coming in to speak to address specifics. Like each of the doctors and the guest speakers all have something that they would like to address that helps move the discussion forward in opening up more dialogue, more information, and looking for ways to help us move forward. Dr. Gary Davidson, who put out the report, is also going to be speaking. Because for him, one of his recommendations was a formal inquiry. We believe that subpoena power is going to be necessary in order to be able to get to the bottom of the information that's going to be required for us to make better decisions for the future with regards to medical interventions and policies that get moved forward by our governments upon us. Because lots of people saw really quickly that the Charter of Rights and Freedoms was about as useful as toilet paper. And so we can't just stand idly by and allow that to be the policy for the future, because if they do it once and we as citizens don't put pressure on our MLAs to have the real conversation, then what's going to stop them from doing it again? And so the mission statement for this particular injection of truth is about healing humanity, and it's going to be about getting information to the citizens so they can get active with that information. Because trying to garner a view that is controversial to mainstream narrative, which comes back full circle to where we started this conversation about censorship, it is a challenge, to say the least, to have a conversation with these types of topics to be put onto like global or CTV news or city, or even any of your main, even your radio programs. And so which I'm sure you're familiar with as well. So yeah,
I'm very familiar
that's
with
what
that.
we do. Right. Yeah,
Tell
so
me, tell me,
go
Mike,
ahead.
what is your interaction with these MLAs? Because these are the people that are directly responsible for the decision making of the last 5 years. When they come in, is it sort of like people don't make eye contact with them? Do they give them the stink eye? What do you do?
um well, I haven't been able to sort of shake hands and kiss babies, so to speak, with that many, but there's a change going on in Alberta. Now, I'm not one to sit back and subscribe to hopium. That's not my style. I was on the drilling rigs for 17 years. I'm a more metal meets the meat type of fella. Um, there are individuals, like, it's great. We have like Eric Bouchard being an MLA. I know Eric, met Eric. This is it's important to him and it's important to his board to have this conversation. I know that he's advocating to other members of our legislative assembly to pay attention to these topics, have a bit of courage, exercise a willingness to hear the citizens, because there's more active Albertans. Like, we set a record for the last 3 years for citizens attending an annual general meeting for the provincial political party, the UCP. Like, one of a few. We've obviously got like Liberals and NDP as well, but it's the institution of the United Conservative Party is what's being used by the people to try to change and get this message out. And we had 6,000 attendees at our last AGM, which is set a Canadian record from the record that we set the previous year, which was like 2,875, I think, or something along those lines. And so with this activity, there are MLAs that are realizing that this topic isn't going to go away. And as much as they might politically like it to go away, it's not, because the damage is real. The citizens are hurt. There's still downstream consequences going on. So the MLAs that attended the first event, so we had 5 members of our government that actually showed up. I'm going to say that they were received with like gratitude as an overall consensus, because you're there. You're hearing this. You can't unlearn knowledge. So the people that are putting on this type of event, your plebs, your grassroots, if you will, really just regular human beings trying to think their way through and solve problems. They're happy to see them there, but it didn't achieve the overall objective politically that we were hoping for. But that being said, like policy wise, it's like that event had 575 people attend it in person. We had 18,000 streams going on that night. We had 200 watch parties throughout the province of Alberta, which ranged from anywhere from 20 to 200 people attending these watch parties per watch party. And then we had 2.5 million touches of our videos, our sites, our literature from that first event. We streamed in Australia, I think, like on the X space is pretty high up. For whatever reasons, Australia really resonated with the message, even though we're just putting it out there as information for any and all to see, of course. So we're going to set out with the same type of enthusiasm with this event, because regardless of whether or not we're going to totally get the government to pivot, when you're looking at the groundswell and the citizenry that is active and involved, and there's more, like I said, the Overton window is moving. So we have more people paying attention. And when you get boards coming together to vote a participation, they want to stand to be counted on this event. Because when you go to the website and you click on it, you'll see get a streaming pass, which I encourage your viewers and anyone that's going to watch your program, by all means, like, watch it, stream with us. I mean, because like, if you can't actually make it to the physical event in Calgary, I get that. But if you got friends or family or people that are starting to kind of have that suspicious feeling that maybe their health or someone that they know died suddenly, died younger than normal, and advanced cancer took them in ways that they were like, this is just, it's making your hair on your neck kind of stand up, then this is the type of town hall that you might want to find yourself paying attention to. And what's happening is that, like, a little slogan maybe in my own mind, but we're trying to make bad politicians do good things. Because technically speaking, the political class has shown themselves to be fair weather politicians. There's very few that have legitimate, honed convictions that are not tied to an ideology. One where they really are trying to figure out how to put the best version of them forward, having the conversations, listening to their citizenry, considering the devil's advocate side of a topic, and then finding themselves going, we need to make policy that benefits the people more than it benefits corporations, bankers. Like, these are tools, corporations are tools, banks are tools, but the true capital, the true value is human beings, minds, brains, potential, possibility, creativity. So once again, this is context to answer the question about Did they hold their heads up high? No, not all of them held their heads up high. Not all of them are going to hold their heads up high, because most cases we have fair weather politicians throughout Canada, if and or could be argued malevolent politicians, ideologically possessed politicians. That's on us. Like, that's on us as citizens. That's what this type of event is about, is showing citizenry active, organizing, trying to put pressure about real topics and real issues upon individuals such as yourself, such as the MLAs throughout Alberta. We got to 10, maybe 11 by the time the event happens, boards that are sponsoring. That means that maybe those MLAs are going to feel a little bit more pressure when their own boards are asking for this topic to be discussed and they themselves oppose it. Questions. Your boards are usually your citizens that are willing to be, because it's a volunteer position. Nobody's paid to be on a board. I know. I'm on one now. I wasn't years ago, but I am now. My daughters are on it with me. And it's like, we're sitting back going, we're volunteers. We're the ones that will help with donations. We're the ones that will help with phone calls. We're the ones that will help with the door knocking. We're the ones that will help with trying to encourage people that MLA is not an unreasonable individual. They can be approached. They're willing to do the hard work. Like, we're the eyes and ears then of an MLA. Your board is kind of like their first feelers into the neighborhood, besides their own door knocking that they do. Because if they find themselves up in legislation, in most cases, when you're surrounded by other MLAs under the dome in Edmonton, there's an echo chamber that can happen there, right? And so when you got a board that's sitting back going, we want this to be a discussed topic, we voted on it, regardless of what you think, you should pay attention. Otherwise, you're not going to be an MLA for long, because what's going to end up happening is these boards, they're not going to get behind you. Like, somebody else will end up stepping up, and there's someone maybe that they trust, and they're going to put their endorsement. They're going to run an LCNC. Oh, sorry, a local constitution nomination committee, a local constituency nomination committee, and they're going to rally around someone that is going to represent the interests of the constituency, or the riding for the BC viewers. So, yeah, I think that answers your question.
It does. So
Okay.
first, Nikita Mahout, she's a PPC candidate from Hamilton, Ontario, saying, "Nice job, Alberta." So you got your first fan.
Thank you.
I have some questions. First of all, you mentioned Australia. So, like, you said you had watch parties and you were streaming to Australia. For people that are
Yep.
like in BC or in Alberta, they're watching and they want to do something similar. Like, they want to do something to help their country. How did you guys get to that point? Did you just tell everybody to do whatever they can to spread the word, or do you have like a centralized command structure?
Okay. There's a lot there that's context, because now we have to. So this plays into the ripple effect of what happened to everybody in Canada over the last 4 years. So hopefully we got a little bit of time here, and I'll try to summarize this as quick as I can to a degree. But as you can tell, I like to give context with these types of questions, because it's never just as simple as, like, there's nuances, and dichotomous thinking is something that gets foisted upon us, that plays into the right versus left, red versus blue. And as far as I'm concerned, these are two wings of a larger bird. And if we don't cognitively get this figured out as citizens, we're going to get caught in a game that's been as an ancient game. So when the consequences started to seep into the average Canadian's heart, so to speak, some things that happened in Alberta. One was the trucker convoy. A bunch of citizens that, when all of a sudden the mandates and the inability to be able to even run trucks across the border, and the overreach of the government was getting too far, people decided to do something about it. So the trucker convoy was a huge wake-up call for people. Like, when you looked at the millions of Canadians that lined up, and I do mean millions, that lined up on the highways, right from Vancouver Island all the way to out east, in support, feeling like this was a citizen action to try to get attention to our federal government to go, what you're doing is wrong. That was huge for Alberta. And then we also had the Coots scenario that had happened down south of the Coots border, Coots crossing. And from there was other, like, the one thing I'll say about the Alberta mindset and the conservative mindset within, and I don't mean like the party conservative, I'm talking like the word conservatism. There's an entrepreneurial spirit. It's the reason why you get all these different little groups that all want to pull on the rope in the way that they feel that they want to try to make a difference. Like, it's why you always get new parties being inspired or being put together, because there's a can-do attitude in Alberta, and it's like, we want to get stuff done. The business should be running. Want to train my employees. Want to see them succeed. There should be prosperity, and when there's not, then there's kind of like a WTF? What's the problem? And then unfortunately, and like fortunately for the heart and soul of the matter, there's well, if you want something done right, you're gonna have to do it yourself. So a little bit of a problem there with that is that then you get a whole bunch of individuals that don't get together and organize, right? They kind of will reach out and they'll get a smattering of individuals that will come in. So it's like we had the APP, which was the Alberta Prosperity Project, all of a sudden got off the ground and was going around trying to bring up awareness. We had TBA, which was Taking Back Alberta. David Parker was a big the creator of that. And then, you know, like, when you had all these different parties and the Maverick Party showed up and you got the UCP and it's like all these 3-letter acronyms of different groups that all of their intentions line up. And that's the part that I'm seeing is like, okay, so this is good, because this is a huge batch of citizenry that all know something went wrong and they are all motivated to want to do something about it. What happened, one of the bigger movements that TBA offered was there was kind of like a standard question, and I'll present it as how it got presented to me when I attended a TBA event. And it was, are you happy with what you are seeing in your education system and the types of literature or books or ideology that's being pushed at your libraries or in your schools? And almost everybody's hands in these rooms would go up. And then the very next question that would come up would be, all right, and how many of you actively sit on a library board or a school board or a constituency association board? And it was like crickets. Now, I'm a fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me kind of guy. And I was like, all right, like, I got to sit back and eat the humble pie here. Like, this is clearly my apathy and my inability as an individual helped contribute to the fact that I wasn't engaged. I wasn't a part of my community. I was doing the rigging thing, worrying about watching Connor McDavid, you know, like, so, and the bottom line is that I didn't know where I was in the lay of the land. Now, I know that my story I'm not alone in that story. So then what ended up happening is it's time to go get educated. Like, really, that's what it comes down to. You don't know what you don't know. So didn't know what a CA was, didn't know there was boards, didn't understand the political structure, didn't know what an AGM was, didn't understand the role of an MLA, all of this stuff. So it was like, that was it. It was like I had to get rid of all the bread and circus, and many other Albertans had to do the same thing. Had to understand what it meant to read policy, design policy. What's the process for policy to get moved from an idea between some members on a board to then getting submitted to the party's board and governance policy, and then what they do, a filtering system. Then they send out, like, 300 to 600 different policies that need to be read, scrutinized, voted upon, selected, and ranked. Then it gets sent back. So all of this hard work and understanding was Albertans rolling up their sleeves, realizing we done messed up. So when you say, was there an overall structure? It's like, yes, there was. The body of people that got awoken by what happened was massive in Alberta. What unfortunately happens is we fracture ourselves because everybody's learning curve is different, and then sometimes the hubris of our own, well, if I can do it and I did it this way, like, everybody should be able to do it. No, it doesn't quite work like that. You've got to allow for the nuances of how people wake up. What is it that motivates them? What type of lion? Like, like, my family got active right away, and my whole clan, but we were also turned into lepers, so to speak, right? Like, we made a decision to not partake in the medical intervention. And so we paid a price in Alberta, as many did throughout Canada, that chose to be patient or say no. And then how did that all happen? Right? Well, apathy. We have governments. We had a mafia when it comes to the Alberta health program here. So we did have to get organized. But what ended up happening is, instead of worrying about making another party or trying to come up with another organization, large groups of people started going, well, why don't we just take the UCP back? Take it back. So what are the steps for us to just take the party and make, as Alberta citizens, and make it ours? Take it away from the cronyism, take it away from the old boys club, take it away. So then began the journey of, oh, so we actually got to do a leadership review, get rid of Jason Kenney, do a leadership forum. Okay, Danielle, she's going to be the gal. Slip in Danielle. Then all of a sudden it's okay. Now we need to change the UCP board. So then it was everybody getting together, and there was all sorts of ways of communicating, but it wasn't like everybody is in a large group. It was just we were communicating with one another, even though there were all these different groups. It was people understanding that we have 75 to 85% in common, and we may not always agree with the pace of how things will or will not come about. We were finding each other. And that's where the power of this organized group that you're talking about, it just became citizens looking at each other, at like when we started to go to the AGM to vote in candidates, that we made sure there was town halls where the candidates got to speak. There was town halls where we could listen to them, and we'd go and attend those town halls to find out what their responsibilities were going to be. What were they doing before they became these people, these volunteers? Because once again, this is volunteer positions to be for the board of the UCP party of for the province of Alberta. And so then the whole board got flopped, right? Because you vote nine each year. There's 2-year terms served. And so they staggered them so that every time we do an AGM, we have to vote for 9 individuals on this board. And so that's like, there are people that are now resigning themselves to the fact that this is a part of being a citizen of Alberta. This is what it's going to take to save our province. Whether we want to stay in Canada or not, that's a whole different question. And people will have to have that debate in those conversations. But people were starting to go, no, we need to pull on the rope locally. So now that that's becoming a thing, that's why the AGMs are growing. Like, because the AGM now, when I walked around the first time I ever did one, it was like, okay, you could see all these people that looked like deer in the headlights. Those never been to an AGM before, had no idea how it was going to flow, the responsibilities associated with it, where to go for voting, who do you get to go listen to. You know, you've got these different rooms where you could see some of the cronyism, where there was like these rooms where some pretty pompous, self-fluffed individuals, politicians, were trying to like win and buy votes, so to speak, with their comp rooms. And then there was this other flavor that was starting to intermingle through all of this, and it was just regular people. Like you're farmers and ranchers and your riggers, and like, I mean, just the salt of the earth people that roll up their sleeves and normally go to work and don't think anything of politics, because they're trying to work. They're your most conscientious people. So they want to show up to work on time, and they want to do their job, and they want to make sure that the mama's, the bacon's come home to mama, or if mama's bringing home the bacon, it gets home to papa. It's like, that's the salt of the earth. That is the true backbone and power of a province. And they're showing up. They're showing up. They're getting onto the boards. They're coming to the AGMs. They're having the conversations. Then maybe when one board reaches out to another board, we're starting to know, like, now I have friends on several different CA boards, and we're finding each other, and we're becoming our own family in Alberta. And we don't necessarily agree on all things, but we know what we do agree on. We agree that we are hurt, and we agree that our government did not do right by our convictions and our intentions. So since a government put its intentions forward, and they did to the citizenry what they did, the citizenry now has a decision to make. Are we going to get good? Are we going to get into play? Are we going to roll up our sleeves and set into motion our intentions? It is a conspiracy. It was a conspiracy that led to the policies that did to us what happened over the last few years. Well, guess what? It's a conspiracy on the other end. Like everything's conspiratorial. Plan a birthday party. That's a conspiracy, a surprise birthday party, especially. Have a board meeting with your party about where you want to go for a campaign strategy. That's conspiracy. What about a product launch? You got a bunch of people in a room talking about it, looking at their overall where things are going to go for a product launch. That's conspiracy. And then downstream, the people see the intentions of these conspiracies play out into real life. So it ain't a theory. This is life. Life is conspiratorial. So we need to conspire to get our province back. I hope that answers your question.
It did, and more. I've been accused of on my show seeming like I'm completely uninterested in my guest. I guess I'm incapable of showing emotion, but that was very inspiring. Those were great words, and you answered that very well. Thank you.
That's what we know. I'm new to this whole thing, so I guess that's why I'm enjoying having moments to be able to share and talk about this event. It's like there's no corporate sponsorship here, like on any type of major scale. We have NGO penetration all over the place in Alberta. Like the bad guys, they're all over the place. But when authenticity is real, and it's something that politicians are terrible at. They are terrible at being authentic human beings. They've forgotten what it means to say, I don't know. And they're like, yeah, but the media will tear you apart. Who cares? Like your life didn't end because the media say a thing. And you want to know what? If you weren't a valuable human being to yourself and to your family before you got into politics, you shouldn't be placing the value of your structure on what looks like now that you're in politics. It's like, no, you were valuable before you decided to run. You had a conviction. Now you're trying to respond to your conviction. You got to find a way to be the most authentic version of yourself in that process, no matter what it is that they throw at you. Because here's one for you. If your political career fails, do you stop breathing? Do you stop living? Do you stop eating? Do you stop hugging your family? Are you going to stop working? You got to pay the bills. So life isn't going to stop. So be the best politician that you feel that you can be under a conviction. Listen to the people. And man, if it gets your ass booted out in the end of the day, then so be it. But I'm pretty sure when you start to get more active citizens that are looking those politicians in the eyes and they're shaking their hands and they're listening to them and they're asking the right questions, all of a sudden, maybe the politicians will start to feel like they could be a little bit bolder about their own convictions. They can actually exercise a little more honesty with some humility, because you don't know what you don't know. Like you're arguing policies and you don't fully know what the downstream consequences of the policies are going to be. What if you're a lazy politician and you don't even read the material that gets put in front of you? Or the party line says, oh, we all have to move forward and vote on whatever policy A, policy B. And yeah, you only got 24 hours to be able to go over this because it's an omnibus bill and we're going to fire this through, party line and all, and you got a party whip. And there should be individuals within the party that go, well, if you're not going to give me the time to properly read and think things through, and I'm supposed to help represent a bunch of individuals that voted me here for me to now work with you other politicians, by my own conviction, I'll abstain the vote then. Like they need to see that on record, like even if it makes its way through, that I chose by my conviction and my responsibilities. I can't until I've read it, thought it through, maybe even send out some mass emails, maybe do a little show like we're doing right now about the policy and try to nail your constituents with a 5-minute video or something. Like there's so many different tools. There's so many better ways politicians could be doing this thing. And yeah, so like, I want to inspire that. Like I'm a guy that's on the ground. I'm willing to go and help a politician, but I got to see these people doing the right thing, and authenticity can't be faked. Like you ever wonder why we use the term the ring of truth? Like it rings, just what they said rang true. It resonated with me. That's a frequency. Well, when people are lying to you, you got that odd feeling. You're like, something ain't right. Yeah, something ain't right. May not know what exactly, but something ain't right. Maybe that's your ignorance. Maybe they've said something and you don't have the knowledge necessary in order to be able to hold that politician accountable with what it was they spoke. Okay, that's on you then. You got to go get good. Got to do some reading, roll up your sleeves, bench press some books. But if you've done the due diligence on the matter that's being presented by your local politician, and they're trying to sell you a word salad, and you know it's a word salad, you got to be able to look at them and go like, "No, man, you ain't passing the sniff test." Like, I'll still shake your hand. I might be willing to door knock, but I'm going to tell you right now, these types of services and these types of participations that I'm willing to do for you, you keep laying eggs and stinking up the joint with these political answers because you're busy worrying about votes rather than the truth. Votes will come. Votes will come. I know there's a propaganda machine, but people are waking up to that. People are waking up to the whole CBC funded by the government, global news funded by the government. No offense to the boomers. They really do like having the television on and having some news program playing, right? That's fine. But that's not how millennials work. That's not how Gen Z's working. And so things are changing in that regards. And these types of scenarios with you doing a live stream, probably other PPC members watching, you're going to be affiliated with this group. That's great. And if they're willing to take a look at injectionoftruth.ca, share it with some friends, maybe they found this conversation inspiring for them as politicians, then good. Find the better version of yourself, do the thing. That's how you can help save your province. You want to get to know what we're doing in Alberta, well, then come on out. Now, make friends out here. Come to some events when they happen. Hop on a plane, go see other parts of Canada. Realize that we actually all have a lot more in common with one another than we realize. And you want to save Canada. Well, I'm of the mindset, got to save your backyard first. If that ends up being something that allows Canada to be a new thing, because I think we need to make it a new thing, to be completely honest. There's some babies that need to go out with the bathwater when it comes to what is Canada. I refer to Matthew Arrett, CanadianPatriot.org, putting out that plug because his work is amazing. Anyways, yep. Authenticity.
Mike, well, on a final note, when is your next event, and where can people go?
Yeah, March 3rd. That's when the event is happening. Please check out the injectionoftruth.ca as you see underneath my name there. Stream it if you actually want to be a part of it. The live event, 7:00 on the 3rd. And if you are organized enough that you want to actually do a watch party and you're going to like rent out a section of a pub or a hall or even just put together something where you can stuff like 20 people in it and you want to have refreshments and hear some great speakers, some truth get put out there, or at least information that can be challenged by your own discernments and others around you, then I ask that you do the thing. So that's an injectionoftruth.ca. Everything that is necessary to see. There's all sorts of different ticket options, streaming options. If you can make it out in person, that would be great too, because then you're shaking hands and kissing babies with people that are in the game. They're in the game. We're doing a thing. I joke and say hashtag something's going on in Alberta, because there is something going on in Alberta. And I would love to know that that's going on in other places around the province. I know in my heart that it is, but I have to admit, I'm not that connected on that aspect because I am just I'm a podcast liaison for this organizing committee. The real heroes here is Eric Bouchard and the doctors that are coming on and the lawyers that are a part of the program. And so like my hat's off to them, and Daryl Comic is the president of that CA board. But I know a bunch of the volunteers, and I know all the people that are doing the hard work. Even this, right? It's like every show that I've done, every interview that I've conducted has been volunteering. And nobody paying anybody nothing. This is all volunteer. So once again, there's power in that. And it could be yours to harness. You could be a part of it. So yeah, that's my plug. An injectionoftruth.ca. Please participate. If you can't and you believe in the cause, then donate. Because all that stuff, it all helps. Flying doctors all over Canada to come and talk to the citizens is not always an easy thing to do. Dollar bills, y'all.
If I'm not mistaken on the dates, March 6th in Edmonton is the National Citizens Inquiry.
That is correct. Yes, there's a new batch of testimonies that are going to be happening. Yeah, in fact, I believe we have 3, maybe even more. There might even be 4 of the speakers that'll be at our event, I believe, are going up to Edmonton to testify. So yeah, that's a big
going to
deal.
be my question. You said going up to Edmonton. Is it possible to watch your show live, and where is that? Your event.
Okay. Well, the event, the injectionoftruth.ca, yes, that's the streaming passes. That's the doctor. We're not affiliated with the NCI, other than like we know of the NCI, we support the NCI's message, and like I'm speaking like for ground folk. I can't say that on behalf of any of the MLAs or any of the boards. I'm just saying like people on the ground, volunteers. I know a lot of them that understand the work of the NCI, and they do support what the NCI is trying to do for awareness about also it's very similar topics, right? That what the Injection of Truth is trying to cover. But that's a separate event. So you're going to actually have to, I don't even have I wish I could point your people to
No, I
where to
get
go
that,
on that,
Mike. But
oh,
but your event, you're going to get speakers that are going to speak. It's at a physical event, or is it a virtual Zoom event?
yeah, it's a physical event and that'll sell out because we can only hold, I think, up to 570 people, I believe, at the venue. But the production of that venue is really high quality. If you actually go to the injectionoftruth.ca, you can watch our first event. When you go into events and go like the media and you go into events on the website, you can actually take a look at the first one before the next one comes out. But when we launched the event on the 3rd, the streaming passes and the watch party, that's real time. Like that's real time. We're turning up the juice. We're hoping to have double the bandwidth so we can reach more people, reach out a little bit further than we did on the first one. So hopefully your viewers or anybody that resonates with this message will be willing to do a thing. So that's how you can watch it live. So you could X space this event if you wanted to, like through the in lay terms, right? That's the name of your program, right? In lay terms,
Right.
yeah. So you could live stream it from your platform with a streaming pass. You could go and get it. You'll get a code. And all of a sudden, you'll be able to put in that code, and you will then be given access. And you can run live commentary on it if you want to, or just shut up and let your viewers watch it. More than likely, if you do it on YouTube, you will be struck down or shut down or get no views or shadow banned. But there's plenty of other platforms. You can put yourself on the BitChute. You can try a run on X. X is not perfect. There's still censorship that goes on X. But like BitChute, Rockfin, like these are other platforms that you could take your show and put it on Rumble and be able to live stream. You could just tell your YouTube viewers, put out a message and be like, I'm going to do a thing. I'm going to actually get the streaming pass. We're going to put this out there, but I'm going to ask all of you, please get your Rumble app or get on the BitChute, because that's where I'm going to run the live stream for the program, because it's higher. It's a play at your own risk with YouTube. I mean, even this conversation, there could have been a whole bunch of things that'll get you a strike.
So far, they haven't disconnected me. I'm
So
probably going to
far.
be driving. Yeah, I'll be driving from BC to Edmonton for the NCI event. I'll see if I can get some tickets for your event, and hopefully I'll attend.
Yeah, well, if that's the case, then yeah. So that'll be on the Monday night. Monday evening is when the event is, and then you can make your way up to Edmonton for the 6th. And a bunch of the doctors, like, so for yourself, if you're actually looking to make connections because you can physically come to the event, there's another option in the tickets and in the different type of tickets that can be purchased. Obviously, you decide if you want to spend the money for it, but there's one called Popcorn and Politics, and that is actually an event after the event where you'd actually be able to mingle with the doctors, shake hands, kiss babies, make contacts. My family will be behind the scenes volunteering for that, but that is also an option for those who physically come and they find themselves wanting to also be able to get time personally with the doctors and the organizers and the MLAs that do attend. That's a great event. It's a little pricey, but it I would say it's well worth it to those who are trying to network onto a larger stage for organization and making connections and friends with some movers and shakers, so to speak. But otherwise, yeah, by all means, come to the event. Look me up. I'll be there. My whole family's volunteering, so we're all doing stuff behind the scenes to help the show, to help the event go off without a hitch. So
Now, is there going to be popcorn offered with that expensive ticket?
yeah, yep,
All right,
yeah,
sold.
oh yeah.
All right, Mike. Well, I don't know. I just want to thank you very much for coming on, and I really appreciated some of the things that you said. That it's going to be very, very not only inspirational but educational for people who want to help their country the way you're helping them. So thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, and to everyone that does watch this or shares it with someone, keep it up. That's what we have to do. Like, sharing and talking is a big, if not the biggest part of the battle that we have for trying to save our own souls in this, like if there's ever going to be a better version of Canada, then that means that there has to be a better version of ourselves first.
Amen. Great words to end on. Thank you very much, Mike.
Yes, sir.